So good morning, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. Cloud Evangelist, that's a strange name, has nothing religious about it. It just means that we have a strong opinion about our view on the world that we're trying to encourage people to consider, which is what I'm here today to present to you, is a strategy, a value proposition, a view of things that you hopefully will consider and potentially apply and benefit from. As a background, I have 30-plus years of software, CAD/CAM software in the CNC world. I started out in the machine shop while I was doing computer science, so I'm a very hands-on guy. I'm still today fabricating parts for my race team, so I race cars, and within that I design and fabricate parts. So even though I'm a software guy, very digital, I'm also very, very hands-on and pragmatic, and I like to think of myself as someone that's kind of nuts and bolts, or in my vernacular, rubber meets the road. Last 4 or 5 years, I've been working with the digital space, digital manufacturing, and specifically applying cloud technology in the area of bridging the gap between the suppliers and the shops, and the suppliers specifically of cutting tools, machine tools, work holding, and some specialty products like probing and a few others. And that's been our focus for the last 4 or 5 years. And that's what I would like to introduce you to, the lessons that are learned and the strategy and the value proposition in that world. So I've got 2 computers I'm trying to synchronize here with my crib notes up here, otherwise I'll forget the points. Because what I've kind of done, usually I'm either talking to end users or, which is machine shops, or software companies, or manufacturers of equipment, but not all 3 simultaneously. So I had to combine 3 presentations into one. So let's start with what you all know. We know that we're in the middle of a digital transformation. Humanity, society is becoming very, very digital, very, very quickly. You know that. The magnitude of change has been called an industrial revolution, and it comes under many other names as well. And the scope of what I want to discuss within this digital transformation, as I had mentioned, it's the digital product data and the digital knowledge very specifically for use in the CNC machining world, so job shops, and as I said, work holding machine tools and some secondary products. And what's the idea here? So one idea is about the product data, and the other idea that's a theme that's within my presentation is what I call the product experience or the journey. It's not the primary part of what I'm talking about, but it's an interesting point that I would like you to consider. So as a company that makes products and deliver them to your customers, I encourage you to think about the journey that you take your customers through, from the very first time that you interact with that customer all the way through to the very end game, at the very end when the customer no longer utilizes your products. It's a journey, it's an experience, and the companies that are going to become the most successful in the coming years are the ones that concentrate on that entire journey like a chain. And what we need to do is to make sure that each element in the chain is as strong as the previous. If one is extremely strong and the others are a different level, too much effort's put in here because the chain is not going to break at this point. It's going to break down here at these others. So it's what I call the product experience or the product journey. Specifically for cutting tools, machine tools, selecting, configuring, purchasing, and using the technology is the issues that I want to show some solutions towards. So as I said, we've got software companies here, end users, and machine tools, and your point of view is slightly different in this transformation. So hopefully I'll be able to cover the points. In terms of where we started with this transformation, there's already one really good lesson in here that you may not have recognized. So you know that in the digital shift, music was the very first industry to become digitized. Your kids today go up on the cloud, they search for the music they want, they buy it, they store it, and they play it from the cloud. That's a fact. That's what everybody's doing today. It's ubiquitous in the music industry. It's very robust. It's not the future, it's the past. So it's very clear that the cloud technology is playing a very strong place today in the music space. You have iTunes, Amazon Music, Google Play, and many others. The lesson there is about the experience, and the specific company on the right-hand side with Apple that does that product experience that I was talking about from the very beginning to the end. It plays that game of the product experience or the customer journey extremely well, where they have the online store, they have the digital player, they have the physical stores. And so the lesson there in terms of the music industry is twofold. One is it is fueled by the cloud. It is purely digital. The other one is that especially Apple is a great reference to try and understand the whole product experience and the whole journey. Because what I want to do is then encourage us as an industry to do a better job specifically with selecting, configuring, purchasing, and using machine tools and cutting tools. So as you know, society moved on, the digital communities came online. Everybody here who is involved in marketing is trying to engage their customers using the digital, the community, the social world, the social media. It's what we consider to be the classic internet companies, right? Facebook, Twitter, et cetera. Very classic technology companies, although I don't like to call them technology companies because there's not that much technology there. It's more like an idea, business idea. Certainly fortunes have been made. Definitely fortunes have been made in this industry. But for us, the point of this slide is the lesson of the data. Specifically, in some areas that you may have used, Zillow, for example, in real estate. What Zillow has done for the real estate market, it's all about the data. Collected the data from around the world, or at least around the country. I can look up any house, I can find the tax history, I can find the proposed price, I can find the neighboring prices of houses, the last transaction, all with a click of a mouse. They've collected and aggregated an incredible amount of data in the real estate industry to the benefit of us as people that are buying and selling homes. You go into the music industry and you have Pandora, you go into the travel industry, you have TripAdvisor. So I like to use these as examples to inspire what we're doing, specifically what I'm doing with the cutting tools and what I'm preaching to you about, which is with the cutting tools and the machine tools. Again, selecting, buying, and using them. Let's make it easier for everybody. Let's talk about aggregating the data. But it's not about collecting data on the shop floor. It's about the data, the original design information, the design intent, the knowledge, the use. What cutting tool should I be using? What speed and feed should I be using? This is known by the manufacturer. I want easy access to that to do a better job in my shop floor and run my parts faster and with higher quality. So as we've gone through this digital shift, you know that the shift came in the media space as well. So what do we have now? We have television and movies, which is streamed on demand from the cloud. Right? That's the way it's working. Newspapers, books, magazines, purchased from the cloud, stored on the cloud, downloaded to your ebook, and you're reading them on the electronic devices. It is happening. It's there. It's not the future. It's actually still, it is still kind of the past. We're past this. What's the lesson there is that the cloud is ubiquitous. It's being used successfully in very, very large volumes. And I like to use the consumer space to learn about the not really trends, but to take the lessons from the consumer space and then from that to decide which ones to apply or to try to apply in our industry. Because being a little bit of a conservative industry, we tend to adopt things a little bit later in the life cycle. So you know, now I'm talking about the cloud to you. If I was in the consumer space, I would be 5 years too late. What's the lesson learned when we think about the media is that during this transformation, many media companies struggled dramatically with the shift in the value proposition. They didn't think ahead, they stuck to the old ways, and they got themselves in a lot of trouble. Whether it's a magazine or a newspaper, there's many, many stories of that. So for us, this cloud technology is coming, the digital shift is coming. Let's take advantage of it. And let's not get into what I call the yes, but management. Yes, it's a good idea, but excuse, 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 excuse. Security, reliability, safety, whatever it is. It's time to move forward. Moving forward and adopting these technologies is what also helps us attract the young workforce, right? If I have repetitive clerical tasks, I have to take the cutting tool data from the catalog, type it into the CAD/CAM system. You think you're going to attract a bright young engineer to do that kind of work after he's studied his butt off for 4, 6, or more years? He's not going to want to do it. We have to automate those things. So where are we going? As you guys know about it, smartphones, smart cars, smart homes, smart factories. Cars are going to be safer, planes are going to be faster, deliveries are going to be quicker, and it's coming very, very quickly. The scope of which I want to concentrate on is, as I said, the digital space, the knowledge, and the data. And the value that it creates for everybody in here is significant efficiency in the operation in terms of the digital part of the operation. Less engineering time, less clerical work, less repetitive work, which actually makes the work a lot more interesting as well. So let's talk about providing the shops the product contents that they need. So again, product experience. I'm a cutting tool manufacturer. I'm a machine tool manufacturer. Especially machine tool manufacturer, I concentrate a lot on the digital content. I have a control, it has an MTConnect on it, it has some sensors, and I work really hard and do a really, really good job for that. Where I tend to fall short is providing the digital data that's needed for the digital shop. I deliver my machine and I'm good. Well, where's the digital version of that? Where's the kinematic model of that? Where's the definitions of all the accelerations on the axes that are needed for the CAD/CAM system? I don't even recognize that normally. So what I'm encouraging people, cutting tool manufacturers, probing manufacturers, et cetera, think not only about the digital content, but also the digital representation of the physical product. So as it's written there, the geometric information, the descriptive information, the usage information, this is what powers the software that's being used in the digital world today, in the digital shop. So it brings us to some questions about how we can use that. How can you use that to improve your customer's experience in terms of using your product, but also selecting, configuring, and purchasing your product? It brings questions about what plans do you have for delivering your technology? Specifically, how would you plan to deliver your digital data to your customer? Which cloud partners would you collaborate with? Which channels would you use for doing that? So I give you some ideas of different ways to accomplish that, different technologies. But it's most specifically concentrated on using the cloud. What I like to think is that for people that are assertively, in a controlled manner, take advantage of this digital shift, there's opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity to distinguish your brand and to improve operational efficiency. For those that say yes but and procrastinate, it's not a good move. It reminds me of the Blockbuster versus Netflix story, which is an interesting story about the adoption of technology. Whether it's this digital shift or in 5 years it'll be something else that's coming along the lines. Blockbuster used to be my corner store, and every Friday I used to take my son, go down, look forward to choosing the VCR tape that we wanted to rent for the evening, bring it home and watch that, and that was the Friday night ritual. There was a small company at that time called Netflix that did things through the mail order, but I wasn't interested because I'm not a planning guy. I'm a last-minute guy. I didn't want to plan and have to go figure out the movie that I wanted to watch 3 or 4 days beforehand. Shift started to occur. That digital shift in that space occurred. My Blockbuster is no longer there. In fact, I don't even know if there's a single one left in the country. My Blockbuster disappeared, and the value proposition that Netflix started to offer with its streaming fit my personality, which was now, instead of going down to the local store, we sit on the Netflix online, choose the movie, and then immediately stream it down. Same ritual, completely different technology. And why did Blockbuster suffer in that transition and Netflix blossom? In fact, Netflix is now coming to compete directly with the major other channels, NBC, CBS, etc., other broadcast solutions. Now, why did they, one shrivel and the other one grow? Is because they took advantage of the opportunity. So it might not be that dramatic in our industry because it's slower moving and you can see it, but it does emphasize the importance of not to get caught into that yes, but, we've always done it this way. It's time to think a little bit differently in this digital world. And why is it happening? Well, it's because of the consumer space that fuels this. And what's it fueled? The network itself, the internet, is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's inexpensive and it's everywhere. The silicon that we need to make all of this stuff work is cheap, and the cloud computing is a reality. It's here, it's today, it's a huge industry, it's a utility that I can take advantage of. Water, electricity, sewage, cloud computing, it's right in there in the sense of it's a utility. I buy and use what I want. I have no startup, no shutdown costs. I just pay for what I consume. Very, very economical. One of the points that might not be that obvious to you is the hockey stick. It was mentioned earlier. Is that the rate of change that's happening in society is accelerating. So we need to start to move a little more quickly each year in order to keep pace. So keep that in mind. The rate of change really tells us that, especially with this digital shift, now's the time to act. So let's get into a little bit of the specifics of what I'm talking about, because that was like the prequel to the heart of the story, which is about the digital shop. So in the world in which I think about the digital shop, it's a manufacturing machining environment, CNC machining environment. Let's not even talk manufacturing. Let's narrow it down to CNC machining environment. And I have quite a bit of software that's being used in that environment today, right? Optimizing, monitoring, scheduling, simulation, programming, etc. There's a lot of really good solutions that are available today. And they're in use, but there's one thing that they all need that is a little bit neglected, which is the data itself. And the cutting tool data and the machine tool data itself. It's where the problem lies. So what are we trying to do with software? We're trying to create a mirror image of the physical world, so that I have a digital world. In my software, I have a digital representation of the machining environments that's equivalent to what I have on the factory floor. So there's a mirror here between the two, so that within my software, I can do much more of the preparation of the job, so that when the job gets on the shop floor, there's a lot less time spent on an expensive machine preparing or fine-tuning the job. So this is a mirroring effect when we talk about the digital shop. There's another thing that's going to be coming very shortly, which is an overlaying effect, where you're going to want to overlay digital data onto the physical world and physical data onto the digital world. And you can think of Google Glasses, which didn't take off yet, but as an example, right? So you're looking through the glasses, you're looking at the physical world, and then you can overlay some digital data onto it. And so this mirroring and overlaying effect is what we want to try and accomplish. The overlaying is more of the future. The mirroring is here and now. Some other examples of overlaying would also be like heads-up displays in cars, and Google Maps with the street view, and the satellite view where you're overlaying some physical and digital representations. What it's always about in the theme of this presentation is in the operational efficiency of the shop. It's what it's about. And in using the expensive shop floor equipment for running production, for making chips, doing as much as possible in the digital world in terms of preparation of the jobs. So for that, we need the data. And as I said, my focus is really encouraging cutting tool manufacturers to make their data available to their users, machine tool manufacturers and the work holding manufacturers, and then some secondary products. So the data-hungry shop software needs the data. Now, they need access to it for sure, but access to it doesn't mean just giving me a PDF file with some speeds and feeds that are good for my workpiece material. I don't want to type it in. My engineer doesn't want to type it in. He didn't go to school for 4 years, 6 years to type data in and be a secretary. So I need to have that data to flow into my software. So I consider that, if you're in the business of manufacturing cutting tools, part of your whole product experience, back to that product experience, is Okay, well, my data needs to flow into my customer's software. How do I do that? What's the best mechanism to do that? And that's where the cloud technology comes into play. It's a great mechanism to deliver that. So a little bit, let's look at the data a little bit. We talk about geometric information, descriptive information, usage information. How does that work in a little more detail? So from a point of view of work holding as an example, it's actually relatively straightforward. We need to have the digital, which is on your right side, and the physical somewhat matching, right? All we really need to do is talk about getting the 3D models in the step file format from the supplier, and that will allow us to bring that into our CAD/CAM systems in order to fixture up the part digitally and then do the programming. But there's two versions of that we need to keep in mind. There's a detailed version of that that's needed and a simplified version of that that's needed. So each component, I need two solid models. That's what the industry wants. You want the detailed version because it's going to look really good for any visual presentations of your products that are being done. On the other side, I need the simplified version because some of the holes and some of the bolts aren't needed when we're doing the calculations in the CAD/CAM software. And if I include that level of detail, the CAD/CAM software with today's computing power isn't able to keep up. So it's a compromise in there where the best solution is to really provide both data formats. So what do? I use that work holding. I do a digital setup. I'm in my CAD/CAM software. I digitally set up, put the workpiece into the work holding. And why I want to do that is because my CAD/CAM system is going to produce a safer, more efficient program when it knows where and how the work holding is done. The simulation software that I use in the shop is going to be significantly more accurate. It's going to therefore avoid the collisions, and the programs can be more optimized because we know what kind of retracts and clearances are required in order to run safely, but without making too many movements. So there's a lot of value in that by having accurate models. And then when I get to the shop floor, my setup times are reduced because the CAD/CAM guys did a much better job at getting all the movements optimized but safe. Therefore, my setup time is reduced on the shop floor. So a lot of good value in there. When you go into the machine world, there's an interesting value proposition in here. It's a little bit different than work holding. It's a little bit more comprehensive, because we need the kinematics. The CAD/CAM systems today need the kinematics. There's a rather lengthy story that I'll try and keep short, which is the state of art of the CAD/CAM today is migrating. It's becoming, you could say it's a digital shift happening there too. It's migrating where we were in a world where the CAD/CAM was done based on part geometry. So I had geometry, a certain shape I wanted to make. CAD/CAM guys did their thing, created the G code, and fed it to the machine. But the consideration was just on the shape, the geometry of the workpiece. That's shifting, and the shift is somehow a digital shift where now the CAD/CAM work is starting to be done taking into consideration the kinematic model of the machine tool. So we start to think inside the CAD/CAM about acceleration, position, velocity, jerk, in order to create better tool paths that then run more efficiently and produce higher quality workpieces. So we need the dynamic information, the kinematic information of the machine tool, along with the solid models of the machine tools as CAD/CAM guys to do the job in the most efficient manner. There is a big struggle today to get that information. It's not easy. I've seen customers spend $500,000 on a piece of equipment, then spend 6 months with the manufacturer to try and get the solid models in order to do what I'm describing. And that's really not an acceptable scenario in today's world. If you're a machine tool builder or machine tool manufacturer today and you deliver a machine tool to a customer, in my opinion, part of that delivery is the digital machine. And even you could consider that the digital machine should be delivered weeks before the physical machine. It lets the CAD/CAM guys get ready with the part programs so that the machine can be more quickly up and running on the shop floor. So we need the step assembly models And we need the kinematic information in order for the CAD-CAM system to properly create, so today's CAD-CAM system to properly create the G-code programs to run the machines. And the idea of a CAD-CAM system that uses kinematic information to calculate toolpath is the whole conversation is rather lengthy, but in short, when you're doing high-speed 3-axis machining or you're doing 5-axis machining, and especially when you have rotary table rotations involved, which you do in 5-axis, for running at high speeds, it's extremely important to monitor at a minimum the acceleration, because if you ask a machine tool to hold a certain feed rate, and therefore it takes an axis and drives that axis beyond its ability to accelerate, now you got a problem on the workpiece quality, and you're going to damage the workpiece. And you can catch that early in the CAD-CAM process if you have this kind of product data available to you to do your work. So I think it's highly valuable, and it's part of the digital shift, the digital shop. Cutting tool data, because cutting tools are a consumable, the volume of transactions is much larger, right? One machine tool, okay, that's fine, but now how many cutting tools are used on that machine over its life? So in terms of the digital world that I'm talking about, and think about, the cutting tool world is where the highest value proposition is. I'm a cutting tool manufacturer. Large ones have 30 to 50,000 items in their catalog. How do I know which one to use? And then how to put them together and mount them on my machine, and the cutting speeds and the cutting feeds for a given material. It's a daunting task. Globally, it's millions of products that I have to consider. So it's a very, very valuable business if we can consolidate this data, get it available in a digital form to help in that customer journey of selecting, configuring, purchasing, and using the tools. The way we do it is the standards are all defined. It's just a matter of taking some action. You know, you have the ISO 13399. That's a great standard for giving us the representation of the cutting tool items. You have the GTC for the tool classification. That's a great standard for giving us the classification that we need to map the tools into the CAD-CAM system. Speeds and feeds can be used in the MTConnect vocabulary to get the speeds and feeds information, because the ISO doesn't actually directly support that. You have the STEP to give you the geometric information, because we do need the geometry models as well. And with cutting tools, as with work holding, we actually need 3 models in the geometry side. Geometry side, we need the STEP 3D model, we need a simplified version, what we call the full version, and then we need a DXF model as well. So we need 3 models in there. Those exist, the data exists. It's just a matter of centralizing it and making it readily available. Making a methodology, providing a methodology to feed that automatically into the shop floor software. So, I talk to cutting tool manufacturers almost weekly, and I'm always preaching to them as an evangelist, provide the data to your customers. They deserve it, but provide it in a way that they can easily consume it. Connects that data flow into their shop software. And why? Because it makes their job of programming the machines, the simulation, the optimization, the different things they do with their software dramatically easier. So, we talk about this idea of cutting tools, machine tools, CAD-CAM software. So why the cloud? Because the answer is because it's the perfect delivery mechanism. It's ubiquitous, it's proven, it works, it provides easy access for the users. There's no local servers, there's no local databases, there's no large downloads. They go up, search on the cloud, grab what they want, 1 million or so items up there, they grab what they want, the 100 or so that they need, they download those, they use that data locally. Very, very easy for the end users. It allows them, in this theoretical world that I'm imagining, this future world I'm imagining, to quickly look at the universe of possibilities from many different suppliers, narrow it down to the choices that they want, as I said, and then download those choices into their software. Very similar to the way kids buy music today. You don't go to each band and, okay, there's band A, band B, band C. I go to their websites and I buy that music, and then I buy the next music off the next website. They go to Google Play, they go to Amazon, etc., and they perform as I said, the purchase, but not only the purchase, actually the playing and the using of it, all in those kind of systems. Same way that with the real estate with the Zillow, it's exactly the same principle. So what we encourage is the idea of let's assemble this universe of possibilities, let's connect it into the shop software. And why the cloud? One of the key benefits, beyond the easy access, is that if I have these millions of items in the world, which I do, how many thousands of those are modified every single day? New tools come up every month from thousands, if not hundreds, or at least hundreds of tools come up that are new every month from different manufacturers. If I'm tooling up a job, I'd like to use the latest insert, the latest grade, the latest bodies. Well, the cloud, if the manufacturer publishes the data on the cloud, it's instantly available to all of their customers around the world. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, they publish it. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, everybody around the world has the latest information. Try that with a paper catalog. It doesn't work. It does not work at all. The other part of this kind of philosophy or business process is reaching beyond the traditional influencers. One of the things that I learned from a friend of mine in the HVAC business is to get your products engineered into the environment at the earliest possible stage. And so with this idea, you have to imagine that there might be influencers that are making tooling decisions that are, let's say, there's 100,000 of them around the world that are the key influencers making tooling decisions every day. There's millions of engineers that are using CAD/CAM software that are kind of before them. And if we can take products and start to reach into those millions of engineers, the brands of the participants are exposed to a much wider audience, and they have a much better chance of getting engineered into the tooling packages that eventually end up getting run on the shop floor. So for me, it's also a story about reaching further into non-traditional influencers within organizations for brands that are, especially the early adopters, because the technology is mature, it's proven in the commercial space, the business strategies are proven in the commercial space. Many examples hasn't been adopted yet in our industry. So the early adopters of this kind of philosophy are going to be the ones that are going to have dramatic improvements on this reach. Once it becomes a ubiquitous strategy, obviously you don't have that advantage against the other brands anymore. So when we talk about this approach, I envision a world where there's the Amazon and the Google and a couple of others, 3 or 4 or 5 cloud solutions. As a manufacturer, you probably participate in all 4. As a consumer, you choose the 1 or 2 that provide a value proposition that's most interesting to you. As a software vendor, what's one of the most important points is that as we want to make the connection from the CAD/CAM software in that digital shop up onto the cloud, it's really one connection. So the data, we don't have to connect to the 200 cutting tool suppliers that are popular in North America. You make one connection to the cloud as a software company, and you can get any of that data. From a cutting tool manufacturer's point of view, the approach that we encourage, the most important thing and the most significant part of the investment is a sustainable business process. So cutting tool manufacturers or machine tool manufacturers the same way. You have a methodology, very well-defined methodology of designing, manufacturing your products, and then communicating about your products through catalogs and websites. So there is a sustainable business process that exists within the organization. We talk about tapping into that, and as a natural step in that business process, every week publishing the new data up onto the cloud. That way your customers on a weekly basis have the latest information, whether it's cutting speed and cutting feed recommendations, or it's the latest kinematic model for a machine, or the latest geometry files. The stuff is always up to date. So most importantly, sustainable business process is what we're encouraging the cutting tool manufacturers to consider. If in this scenario, maybe another parallel in this scenario would be the equivalent of buying a car. When you go to buy a car, why centralize some of this data? The same reason that car dealerships centralize into the auto mall. So if I go to buy a car, I go to the auto mall and I look at brand A, brand B, brand C, make my purchase, and then I'm hopefully a happy customer. In this scenario, I like to talk about these cloud providers as kind of auto malls. So you might be 2 or 3 or 4 of them, or 5 or 6 of them, but they're auto malls which have each one has a wide variety of choices available. And why? Because it's convenient for both the supplier and the consumer. It's very, very convenient. Convenient because there's fewer things to connect together. There's fewer places to publish your data. It gives us a very controlled environment. So I think it's a tremendous benefit for considering this business strategy. If we look a little more specifically about how things are done, remember the journey again is a product, customer journey and the product and the experience. I talked about selecting, configuring, purchasing, using products. If we think about what happens today, telephone calls, paper catalogs, vendor-specific websites, it's slow and cumbersome. This is where there's a value equation in there. Catalogs are obsolete about the time they're printed. They're very expensive. Websites are brand-specific. They're great, and they serve a certain segment of need, but they're still brand-specific. When you go from website A to website B, they lack consistency, so it's not that easy. One website might have solid models. The next website has descriptive information but doesn't have the 2D models, and it's a hit and miss. When you're tooling up a job, it's not just going to be one cutting tool supplier. It's going to be multiple cutting tool suppliers. I don't want to bounce across multiple websites to tool up a job. It's too complicated. It's too time-consuming. If you think about a parallel Chevrolet car, they have a beautiful website. They also participate in Edmunds.com. Where do you go when you want to buy a car? I bet many of you go over to Edmunds and you look up things. You go over to the Chevrolet website, then you go over to the dealership. So it's a similar scenario. There's a lot to be learned about what's being done there. We want to make the selection process for the items as easy as possible. And I think the cloud approach with this auto mall kind of approach is a real good methodology for helping people with the selection process. Now, with today's technology, the cloud technology, up there, there's a lot of methodologies for providing knowledge, for providing an approach to delivering product knowledge. And it's what we call advising. So the idea that you can, instead of having one of your engineers as a machine tool provider or a cutting tool provider, one of your engineers having to answer a telephone call every time a customer has a question and it becomes repetitive, we can start to capture that knowledge, embed it into software, put it up on the cloud, and make it available to all your customers. So in the case of cutting tools, one of the ways that this materializes is that instead of talking about the type of cutting tool you want, you talk about the type of workpiece that you're machining. I have certain workpiece material. I have a certain workpiece feature I want to machine. What do you recommend is the best tool to do it? What do you recommend is the best insert? And having the knowledge up on the cloud to do the thinking, to provide an answer. Here's a recommended tool. Here's the recommended process. Here's the recommended speed and feed. The infrastructure is there to do it. It's a matter of now the people publishing the data in order to allow this infrastructure to provide this service. So it's kind of application knowledge made available, instead of one by one, it can be made available to all your customers. There's also a connection issue because it's not just about making it available, right? We are in our CAD/CAM. We've got the part that we're going to manufacture on a CNC machine. My CAD/CAM does what we call feature recognition, understands the different elements of the workpiece and what they are. We want to take that feature tree, as we call it in the CAD/CAM language, pass that up to the cloud, have the cloud do the advising, and then pass the resulting tooling package back down into the CAD/CAM. So now we're talking about the two-way communication between the digital shop, the software in the shop, up onto the cloud, does some thinking for us, recommendations from the manufacturer, come back, and now are imported into our CAD/CAM, and we can continue on with our CAD/CAM activities. So it's a very interesting business approach that I think provides a lot of value for everybody. Another one that's relatively unique is well, not unique, it's a technology that exists, but it's not widely used, is put the CAD on the cloud. It's there. I mean, it's put it on there. It's already there. The CAD systems are available on the cloud today. What does that mean that I can do? It means that I can assemble the tool for you automatically. So instead of going to a vendor's website, downloading item A, item B, and item C CAD files, taking those files manually with an engineer and typing them into my and importing them into my CAD/CAM system to build the assembly, that step can be automatically done on the cloud. The assembly model is automatically provided down to the end user. So it's what we call configuring. It uses the ISO standards. The approach that we kind of promote is the use of the ISO standards, so the ISO matching code standards, and then your individual solid models for each item. Combine that with a CAD system on the cloud, and we can automatically create that assembly. And highly valuable and highly time-saving because it's done very manually right now. In the purchasing process, we don't envision engaging in the chain of the purchasing process, but we do envision enabling it. So the cloud technology, we envision you tooling up a job. A job's a set of tools that you're going to use. Now, when you do that, there's a couple of things that you want to do, because I want to make sure that the tools that I have in inventory, I don't go out and try and buy them again. So I need to cross-reference the job to the tools I have in inventory. I might even, during the selection process, cross-reference what I've selected to what I have in inventory. It might influence the choices that I make in my tooling. So what I call the local inventory connection. So connect the cloud to the local inventory. It's being done today, whether it's a vending machine or it's a tool management software. Connecting them together helps in the selection process. So my title says purchasing, but it's really enabling the selection process by knowing what I need to buy. I've got it in inventory. I don't need to buy it. The other connection that's very interesting to do using the cloud technology is the distributor availability and then the manufacturer's availability. So both of those are very interesting also because I don't want to tool up a job and then not have the cutting tool available when I go to purchase it. So purchasing is empowered as well. Eventually, the purchase lists are passed into the ERP system or into the distributor's shopping carts. The using part, as I'd mentioned, we don't want to be typing in speeds and feeds. We have on the right side some kind of digital representation of a machining environment with the workpiece, the work holding, the tooling. That's what it's about, enabling the CAD/CAM guys. And on the left-hand side, we're talking about making a cut. What speeds and feeds does the cutting tool manufacturer recommend? Feed that automatically into your CAD/CAM system. So it's still a mirroring that we're trying to have go on here. The digital world that actually mirrors the physical world. Why? Because when I do that, my programming, simulation, the analytics, the management, the monitoring are all now enabled, much more so. They can do a better job for me in each of those activities. Collaboration is another element that with the cloud. Working in work groups and sharing the data sets becomes much, much easier. You can take some lessons from the social media slide that I had earlier on and very quickly envision different collaboration opportunities that work really, really well using this cloud approach. I'm quickly running through these because I'm running short on time. So what kind of value does this create? So we have about 10,000 customers, maybe a little bit more, maybe closer to 12,000 customers that we're working with right now that are employing portions of the strategies that I'm talking about. What we're finding, which is very interesting, is for the early adopter manufacturers, so cutting tool manufacturer, machine tool manufacturer, work holding manufacturer, are increasing their year-on-year revenues 10 to 20%. And why are they doing that is because the customers are starting to prefer their products more so than the other non-adopters. And why the customers are preferring it is because in the tooling up of the job and in certain portions of the CAD/CAM steps, but especially in tooling up jobs, 8-to-1 productivity gain. This is what they're seeing. It's much, much, much more productive in terms of what it takes to tool up a job and have all the information you need to properly program the job. So with that, I must say thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, we got time for a couple questions.
Okay.
Quick question.
Chuck, is the emergence of STEP and C going to influence the digital strategy of a machining company, and if so, how?
That's a good question. So STEP NC is not an area that I have studied much, so I don't have a lot of knowledge on that technology. But I do, from what I understand, it's been around quite some time, and I am not seeing any traction on that whatsoever. You know, I'm still seeing traditional G-code and traditional transfer of data. So for now, my concentration is much more in encouraging the cutting tool manufacturers and the machine tool builders to open up this idea of flowing the digital data that we need as shop guys to program the machines and run jobs. So maybe in the future, I don't know. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Not much insight on that one.
You mentioned ISO 13399
Mm-hmm.
and also the GTC standard.
Yeah.
In your system, how do you ensure the supplier supply the data? And also for your format, I mean, what kind of mechanism you're using? Because as of today, I mean, so far, if I try Machining Cloud, from the drawing perspective, I do not see ISO standard there.
That's correct, yes. What we do is that, let's try and do this quickly. The cutting tool manufacturers have a native engineering process and an existing way of publishing their cutting tool data. And when we go to them and we say, hey guys, let's get you on the cloud, get you into ISO, and we'll have this beautiful thing working, they go, it's going to take me 5 years to re-engineer my processes to use the ISO as the fundamental foundation of my data. So we don't take that approach. The approach that we take is we tell them to give us the native data. We put the native data up on the cloud. So the product trees, the call-outs, the descriptions is their brand. It looks exactly like their brand. It's typically like the catalogs or their websites. It's actually, we think, a better way to go. It's familiar to everybody. Then what we do is that we take that native data, and when we export that data to the CAD-CAM, we do a mapping where we map it into the ISO. So this process and responsibility then falls on us, and it's a work in progress. As we work with each manufacturer, we work through the details. And the other part that we do is that because we're working with very specific vendors, you know, I can pick out about 30 software vendors, and I hit 80 to 90% of what's used in the world. You know, SolidWorks in the CAD and Mastercam in the CAM and so on down the line. And so I work with each one of those one-on-one to just provide them the data they need, because they don't need the full ISO set. They maybe need 10 properties out of 50. So if that's the 10 properties they want, that's the 10 properties that they get. The other thing that I do is that I do some non-standard stuff, because in order for an example, for a product A to work, it needs a revolved profile of a rotating tool. So I provide it the revolved profile of a rotating tool. Now, that's not ISO, that's not GTC, that's just the revolved profile of a rotating tool that product A needs to do its job, and I provide that as well. So there's a little bit of, let's say, tuning that we do to make the data flow pragmatically.
Chuck, I think you sold me on the idea of a cloud database for machine tools and cutting tools. That information could be downloaded directly to machines. Now, it's a big problem to solve, and you've got a group here. Does everyone else think it's a good idea to have that available? Yes or no? Those who say yes, having that data available for a direct download, raise your hands if you say yes. Yes. Okay, my next question is, what entity would best coordinate the creation of that, and I realize it's a big challenge. I understand that. What entity is best suited to corral everyone associated to make that happen?
Now that's, my answer to that would be a small number of independent operating software companies. That's what the machining cloud company is all about. That's what they were founded on, is the vision of fulfilling that need. That's my answer to it. So I don't expect to be the only one out there. There'll be 2 or 3 or 4 other mainstream solutions like mine. But I look to the independently operating companies so that they're neutral to the software side of it, and they're neutral to the manufacturing side of it too. So the cutting tool manufacturers, very neutral up there, very neutral down here, and then they can provide a lot of value. And the way that we view it is in terms of how things are funded and how the money works is a subscription approach. So the end users are going to, in our business, are going to end up paying a subscription for the service that we provide that helps pay for all the development efforts and the coordination efforts. And that's my answer to it.